At 1 o'clock our time, former President Trump is expected to arrive in court for the third time this year. He'll face the latest indictment against him on felony charges stemming from the January 6th investigation. We're joined live now by former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani to talk about what we can expect today. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Rudolph.
So this was interesting to me that Special Counsel Jack Smith focused not on insurrection or another seemingly more serious crime, but rather on obstruction. Explain.
Well, Special Counsel Jack Smith has taken a conservative approach, and we saw this with the classified documents case as well. He chose to file in the Southern District of Florida as opposed to Washington, D.C., which would have been a more favorable venue because he didn't want to litigate the venue issue. Same here. Jack Smith wanted to charge the more readily provable offenses, the conspiracy, the obstruction. Insurrection would have been a bridge too far and potentially something that he might not be able to get a jury to unanimously find beyond a reasonable doubt.
Do you anticipate more charges to come? I mean, we know these alleged co-conspirators have not been charged. We have a good idea basically of who they are, including Trump's lawyers. That seems to be part of his defense, is that I got bad counsel. This is what they instructed me to do. But they haven't been charged yet. Do you think that they will be charged, or do you think maybe that they're turning on the former president and that more charges against him might come out?
Rudolph, it's very likely that others will get charged if they do not cooperate with the Department of Justice. Again, in the documents case, we saw it with a superseding indictment against Carlos de Oliveira, who's the property manager of Mar-a-Lago. So in the new case, there's 6 unindicted co-conspirators, 5 of which are lawyers, and those are likely to be Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Sidney Powell, Jeffrey Clark, Kenneth Chesebro. These were individuals that were advising Donald Trump, and really in a case that's about knowledge and intent, I would expect them to say that they told the former president that he lost the election and that his strategy was not legally sound. And if not, they could be wrapped up, these co-conspirators, in a superseding indictment.
When we talk about Jeffrey Clark, you know, the indictment also lays out Trump's alleged attempts to weaponize the Justice Department. If proven true, could that affect other cases that the government has prosecuted?
Well, that's certainly going to be both a legal and political defense, but you've had folks like Bill Barr come out recently, who's Trump's attorney general, and say that they told Donald Trump that he lost the election. Same thing with Mike Pence. But of course, this is a case that's playing out both in the courtroom and on the campaign trail. Trump is, of course, running for the Republican primary. He's likely going to get it and then move forward to the general election. And we all know if Trump wins and he regains the White House, all his legal problems go away, at least on the criminal side, because it's well established that no sitting president can be prosecuted.
That was the Justice Department memo, right? But of course, uncharted territory here. Quickly, before I let you go, intent, right? Intent goes to the heart of this case. When you talk about all the people who told him that he did indeed lose, or at least that's their testimony, is that going to be really at the heart of this case?
This is the primary issue in the case, Rudolph. Again, compared to the documents case where Trump has admitted to having those documents and knowing that they were classified, this case is different. Trump is going to argue that he was merely auditing the 2020 election results, or that he was following his attorney's advice. Maybe it was bad advice. But unless Jack Smith can establish that Trump knew that he lost the election and he intended to overturn the results anyway, he will be acquitted. That's why so much of the indictment is spent on what Donald Trump said and what was said to him.
All right, Neama Rahmani, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.